Hey everyone, welcome back to Elemental Cartomancy. This is my second attempt at filming this, or my second time starting it, because I started filming it before and realised there was something wrong with my audio, it wasn't connected. So, short of wanting to upload a silent video where you get a chance at practicing your lip reading skills, I thought I better start again. So here we go. This is a VR to Anna at Astro Lady Tarot, and this is hashtag my dishevelled decks. And basically, Anna's asking is, I think it was kind of in response to a tag that someone else did about their shiny decks. It might have been Masha. And this is where we show our decks that are, through time and through use, they've become dishevelled, they've become banged up, that kind of a thing. That's my understanding of it anyway. Um, so yeah, I don't have that many to be fair. I'm not counting decks that have come to me in a dishevelled state. Okay, so I've got some vintage decks, and this deck here. Uh, they've come to me in various different conditions. Some of them are in better conditions than others. But I'm not counting those decks that have come to me in a dishevelled state. I'm only going to be showing you decks that have become dishevelled because of the way that I've used them or I've tried to mod them or whatever. Okay, so without further ado, let's start off. The first one I want to show you is my copy of the good old Thoth Tarot. Okay, the main reason I would consider this dishevelled is because of the really shitty trim job that I've done on it. It was maybe the first tarot deck that I ever trimmed. I just used scissors and eyeballed it. As you can see, it's not very even at all. You can tell just by looking at it with the naked eye. Um, if I was doing this today, I would be using, masking tape or washi tape or something to make sure that I'm getting that even cut. And I would be using a proper guillotine and not scissors. So yeah, with that said though, it's in terms of just looking at the images, it's absolutely fine. Uh, Light is really annoying. Let me see if I can. Yeah, that's a bit better. Um, in terms of looking at the images, looking at the cards themselves just laid out, it's fine. There's nothing too bad about it. It's not like you can tell they're uneven like that. It's only when they're kind of together as a deck that you can really see the unevenness. And the other thing about this deck, and this is more through use than anything else, it's developed this really odd bow to it. And I remember that I had this bow before I trimmed it. Okay, this is a deck that I've had for a long, long time. And it's weird because usually decks that I have develop what I call the riffle shuffler's bow. Excuse me. So through riffle shuffling the deck, they'll either become bent kind of this way. Okay, so it gets a bow like that, or, and this is more true for me because I do the bridge shuffle, it will look more like that, where it bends this way. But this is a weird one. This is kind of a bend almost like that. It's like the bend is from corner to corner rather than across the middle. Has anyone else experienced this with a Thoth deck, or is it just me? Really, really unusual. So that's the Thoth. The second one I want to show to you, share with you, is this. This is my first edition copy of the Marielle Tarot. This I consider dishevelled, again, mostly because of a poor trim job. Um, I trimmed this, I believe it was either by scissors or using a kind of a sliding guillotine. So it's like a razor that you slide up and down and it cuts the card. It really didn't interact well with these particular cards, with this card stock. This is the kind of the old Schiffer, kind of a glossy, sticky cardstock. So it wasn't the best trimming method to use, and also because I wasn't kind of taking any measures to make sure everything was even, we have yet another one of these kind of a more uneven trim jobs. So you can kind of see it. Just looking at the cards, it's not as bad as the Thoth, but still, it's not the most even job in the world. Another thing you're noticing here, I've edged it myself in black after I've trimmed it, and you can tell by through use, through riffle shuffling and overhand shuffling and whatever else, the the edging is kind of a coming away, it's wearing away. That's not something that I would consider disheveled on its own, especially if decks have got like kind of a shiny gilding on the edges. To me, that's naturally going to wear away within not much use. That's just to me a sign that a deck is used and loved. But if we add it in with the the trim job, uh, that's one of the reasons why I would consider this a dishevelled deck. So that's the Mariel Tarot. The next one I'll share with you is this. It's the Tattoo Tarot. Now, right away, let me say that I do love the cardstock in this deck. I've got nothing against it. I love its kind of a papery kind of a feel. It's a thicker cardstock too. So if you look at the deck, it is like of a thicker stock, but it's not the best. It doesn't respond well to riffle shuffling. And if you've watched my channel and you've seen me shuffling cards, you know that I riffle shuffle cards. I feel as though I've not shuffled a deck properly if I don't riffle shuffle it. Well, that was a really poor example. But yeah, because I do riffle shuffle it, it does develop this kind of a bow. And also just because I think of the particular card stock, like, you can kind of see it. Like, see when I just kind of hold the cards gently and let them naturally come apart. Just see how you can see like cards are bent out of place, and it almost has this kind of it's almost making the deck thicker. It makes it stand out thicker than what it actually is, unless I kind of compress it down. Um, and that's just because it's almost like the cards have been bent all sorts of ways and stuff. I make it sound like I'm really harsh and terrible, with my decks. In fact, you can see it really well there. Um, I'm not. I riffle shuffle decks because that's the best way to mix them up, and you know, this doesn't put me off using the deck. This actually makes the deck more endearing. It makes it feel more like mine. So this doesn't particularly bother me in a deck. And the Tattoo Tarot is one that you can get, for a reasonable price. It's readily available, at least for now it is, on Amazon. Um, so yeah, I still love this deck and I still use it. And like I say, the card stock's amazing. I love the images. It has this Marseille-ish feel to it. But as you can see from, like, for example, the swords, it's not exactly a Marseille deck. It's just Marseille inspired. So that's the Tattoo Tarot. The next one is this. It's my vintage copy of the Universal Weight. Now, if you were watching Tarathon last year, I believe it was actually the week after Tarathon when I was live, but I was using this deck on Tarathon, and I used it the week after when I had a kind of an overspill. So my segment of Tarathon was comparing how we read the Smithway, the Thoth, and the Marseille. Reading the same cards from different decks and seeing what different kind of messages we got. So this was my Smithway deck that I used. Um, the week after when I was live and I was doing, I think I was reading for Jonathan Daly, who was one of my kind of a overspill. He was one of my kind of a backup querents that I had. So I caught him and Diane the week after, but when I was shuffling, I've accidentally bent this card, and you can really see it on the back there. If I hold it, you see how if I hold it in the light, you can see that bend. It's the Eight of Pentacles. So now I can tell exactly where that card is in the deck just by looking. So it is very much dishevelled. It is a bit annoying if I'm honest with you. I would rather my like whilst I don't mind like things like the edges getting worn, and I don't mind general wear and tear on a deck, I would rather the cards didn't, or rather there wasn't one card that that was bent out of place. So that was a bit annoying, but still it means I know that it's my deck, and yeah, I love this deck. I love the colours in it. The kind of a more pale, beautiful colours. It's one of my favourite colorations of the Smithweight. So that is the Universal Weight. I've got two more. my copy of the Light Sears, this has become worn and torn. This has become dishevelled purely through use. It's not, but I suppose it's easy to see. It's more just the experience of using the deck. So when I first got this was like really strong. Anyone who's got this, you know, mass market Hay House edition of the deck will know that it's a thick deck, and you can see that just now just by looking at this. It's a pretty thick deck. The card stock is tough. It's durable, it's tough, and it's particularly hard to riffle. But just through use, um, mine's is pretty easy to riffle now, just because the cards have become that pliable through use. The other thing that I've done, and this is quite annoying actually, so I'd edged the deck before. I'd edged it in just a normal kind of a green pen, but then recently, I suppose not so recently anymore, it was at some point last year, I re-edged it using a metallic green Winsor& Newton pen, but it's like never dried. It's it still comes off onto my hands whenever I use the deck quite heavily. Um, so that's a bit annoying, and I suppose that kind of adds to the disheveledness of the deck. Okay, so that was the Light Sears Tarot. And the final deck that I want to show you is the deck that has been with me for the longest. Now, this is um, the version of the Smithwaite that's called the original Rider-Waite Tarot. In fact, this is the box that it comes in. It's this one. Um, this isn't my very first tarot deck. I actually had a copy of it before this, and that got lost. But this is the one that I replaced it with. So this is the one that's been with me the longest. Now, as you can see, I have trimmed this. I've taken it down to just the images and the titles. So I've taken the white borders off of it. Once again, not done a very good job of it. Used scissors, eyeballed it, and it's not very even. There's also some cards, you can tell just by looking there, like there's some cards that are really not in the best, not in the best way. This kind of a Knight of Wands is all kind of in fact, like you can see that that's all kind of a coming away there. What I actually did with this at one point was I was making up like a kind of a book of my own meanings for the cards, and I basically stick these cards into that book, just like onto sheets of paper, and I was writing around about it, like what the cards meant, and then, you know, time went by and I decided no, I didn't want that sitting in there anymore. I wanted to kind of have it out and use it. So they've been kind of a pried off of the, the paper. I've then used baby wipes to kind of a wipe the adhesive off of them. Um, so, and obviously, this deck has been used probably more than any other deck in my collection. So through use, through modding, through Pritt sticking and sticking it into a journal and then taking it out again and wiping everything off, this is well and truly the most dishevelled deck that's in my collection. So it is. But I love it to bits. It's the Six of Swords is another one you can kind of see. You can really see how bad these cards are. Just when I kind of show it to you like that, you see with it at night as well. Um, so yeah, this is a proper mess, but I kind of love it. It's quite endearing now for me. Just being a mess. I think when a deck is dishevelled because of one card, when it's one card that messes the deck up and the rest of the deck is pristine, that irritates me and it makes it difficult for me to use the deck. But when the entire deck takes on that kind of a dishevelled and messed up kind of a characteristic, that doesn't bother me as much. That is when it becomes a kind of a well used and well loved deck, and it's one that I enjoy using. And I keep this. I don't have the box for it or anything anymore. I just keep this in this box, just kind of a shove it in, and it stays on the shelf. So that's us, guys. That's my dishevelled decks. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please check out Anna's original video and all of the other VRs to it. And yeah, I'll catch you all later. Thank you. Take care.